3 hauntingly sinister true stories revealed. Unexplained terrors from the SHADOWS. Kylie felt it before she saw it, the prickling awareness of eyes boring into her back as she pushed her shopping cart through Maplewood's pristine streets. The neighborly waves and polite smiles that once warmed her heart now chilled her to the bone. Something was off. Whispered secrets wrapped around her like an invisible cloak, each murmured word tainting the air she breathed. The search for her husband had begun as a community mission, but in his absence, the friendly faces turned cold. The ones who once hugged her tight now distanced themselves like she was carrying some invisible mark. Sorting through cobweb-laden boxes in her attic felt like peeling back layers of her life, uncovering dust and forgotten dreams. That's when she found it, a family album that held echoes of laughter now turned to screams. Flipping through the pages, she choked on her breath. There was her husband, smiling, standing beside a shadowy figure with dark eyes. Mr. Ricks, the private investigator who vanished into thin air. Was he just supposed to help her find her husband? She felt a shiver cascade down her spine. "Mom, who is this?" Her daughter's innocent question pierced through the fog of haunting memories. Late-night conversations piled up in her mind, shadows flitting through the alleyways of their home. Secrets danced just outside her vision, lurking between the tightened smiles and nods of her neighbors, turning Maplewood into a stage for a dark play. Fear twisted her heart. Were they hiding something? As the days wore on, sudden, cryptic messages started pinging her phone, each chilling her to the core. Trust no one. They are watching. A sense of foreboding thickened in her throat. She'd always thought the suburbs were safe, a world where children could play without fear, but now it became the place where her nightmares blossomed. The children's arms bore strange bruises, markings that appeared overnight. Panic seized her. Who was doing this? The community she leaned on now felt more like lurking beasts in the shadows. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that is happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. On one grim night, as darkness suffocated the last hints of daylight, Kylie found herself frozen behind her living room couch. Muffled voices slithered in from outside, urgent whispers wrapping around her heart like a vice. Sacrifices, the old ways. Dread pooled in her stomach. The words twisted in her mind, echoing her fears. The familiar faces she once sought comfort in now seemed to morph into something monstrous, hiding secrets that could swallow her whole. As shadows danced past her dim window, she glanced at the glowing screen of her phone. A final message flickered to life, daring her, the truth hides in plain sight. With her pulse racing, she caught sight of a face peering in one that used to be a friend. Was it too late to find help? She clutched the phone like a lifeline, heart pounding as terror enveloped her. Would she uncover the truth and save her family, or would Maplewood's dark legacy claim her as one of its own? The night shrieked with silence, each second a suffocating eternity. Kylie pressed her back harder against the couch, fighting the urge to bolt to the door and confront the figure outside. A swirl of familiar faces invaded her thoughts, neighbors who had once laughed at pool parties, shared gardening tips, and exchanged holiday treats. Now, they wore masks of secrets, stitched with shadows. Sudden laughter broke through the tense silence, a sound that sent icy tendrils creeping up her spine. It echoed from somewhere down the street, warped and cruel, twisting into a chorus that sounded almost like a chant. What are they doing? She whispered, dread pooling in her throat. She peeked through the window, her breath hitching at the sight. Gathered outside her home, her neighbors formed a twisted circle in the yard of the Johnsons, their faces illuminated by flickering candlelight. She stared, heart hammering, at the pulsating energy surrounding them, a morbid festival under the shroud of moonlight. Dark cloaks billowed like smoke as they swayed rhythmically, their arms raised, shadows merging and splitting like pulsing wounds in the night. The piercing thought struck her, they were celebrating something, a secret ritual, perhaps? What had once felt like safety now erupted into a claustrophobic nightmare. She remembered the bruises on the children's arms, the whispers of sacrifices, clawing at her sanity. Each element melded into a harrowing image of a twisted community conspiring in the dark. Kylie yanked the phone from her pocket, her fingers trembling as she sought clarity among the chaos. What do I do? A shaky breath escaped her lips as she dialed the police, anticipation warring with despair. But the screen showed no signal, only the remorseful truth of a home stripped of security. The walls felt alive, closing in like a noose. The chanting intensified, accompanied by a dissonance of conjured cries that seeped through her window. Her heart raced like a freight train, fear thrumming in her veins. She inched closer, desperate to hear them above the static of fear. Words slurred together, but one sinister refrain stood out: we offer, we take, what belongs to the dark. Kylie's grip tightened around her phone as panic consumed her thoughts. What if they were referring to her husband? Without time to waste, she decided, she had to get to Mr. Ricks. But how? She had no clue where he was, nor did she dare step outside to ask. As shadows shifted beneath the gleam of candlelight, one figure turned and Kylie felt her breath hitch. Familiar features broke through the hazy darkness. It was Sarah, the woman from down the street who had offered to babysit her daughter just weeks before. The smile that graced Sarah's lips was a contorted mirror of joy, a twisted semblance of the friend she thought she knew. Fear constricted her throat as Sarah seemed to lock eyes with her. In that moment, Kylie was certain she wasn't just watching, they were watching her back. Her heart thudded like hammer strikes against the silence, each beat echoing the silent question, was she truly alone? Before she could process what to do next, a faint scratch came from the door. Someone was knocking. Kylie's breath quickened. Had they come for her? Or was it someone trying to help? The handle slowly turned, the hinges creaking like the cries of tortured souls. She took a cautious step back, adrenaline coursing through her. The door creaked open, revealing a silhouette against the dim porch light. "Help me," the figure mumbled, voice barely a whisper. Kylie's gut twisted as she recognized the wavering tone. It was her husband, or what was left of him. "Where have you been?" The question fled her lips, laced with both longing and dread. "Run, before they see you," he rasped, eyes wild with terror. Before she could react, the chanting surged, a veritable tide threatening to breach the safety of her home. Kylie stood frozen, clinging to her husband's shadowed form, holding the last fragments of her former life. But would running make her free, or would it plunge her deeper? Into Maplewood's dark embrace, the night echoed with the promise of doom, and the dread began to settle deep in her bones as the darkness beckoned. Kylie's heart thundered in her chest as her husband's fevered words clawed at her mind. The chanting outside grew louder, a sinister chant that cut through her like ice. She could feel the frigid air surrounding them, wrapping tighter as if the darkness itself was closing in. "Who are they?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Her husband's eyes darted toward the window, wide with fear. "They've changed, they're not who they used to be," he managed to croak, his form shaking under the weight of its own shadow. Kylie glanced toward the door, a suffocating notion squeezing her throat. "What do you mean, changed?" Just run," he hissed, grasping her wrist with ice-cold fingers. They had been together long enough for her to recognize that look in his eyes, a blend of desperation and dread, something she had never seen before. "They'll take you too if they find you." The walls felt thicker now, as if they were listening, trapping the secrets that had come alive in the night. Unearthly murmurs snaked through the cracks, and she could make out chilling laughter intermixed within the refrain, "We offer, we take what belongs to the dark." Kylie's feet were glued to the floor, indecision racking her. "I can't leave you," she said, but deep down she felt the instinct to survive clawing at her. She had a daughter to protect, but how could she abandon the man she loved? "Please, Kylie. He pulled her closer, desperation radiating off him. If they catch us together, a heavy thud echoed from the yard outside, slamming against the door. Kylie jumped, fear spiking anew. They're coming. She gasped. Go. He urged again. He shoved her gently but forcefully toward the back of the house. The shrieks of their neighbors intensified, the once familiar faces now blurring into grotesque masks dancing to a frenzied rhythm, bodies twisting and writhing. The shadows loomed larger, threatening to engorge everything in their path. Kylie's mind raced. The children, they could be in danger too. Had they already been taken? Was their fate intertwined with this horrific community? She thought of the small hands that had once played in her yard, laughter bright and untainted. She'd have to go. She couldn't risk stepping outside into that sickening gathering. With one last glance at her husband, a shred of hope buried deep in her heart, she dashed into the kitchen. She had to find a way out. A flash of light caught her eye. It was the back door. She pushed it open, the air outside thick with tension, her heart drumroll pounding in her ears. The yard was still, shadows weaving between trees like living threads. She glanced back once, lingering on her husband's wide, fearful eyes. Don't let them take you. He shouted, but the sound was swallowed by the oppressive silence that followed. She ran. Every instinct screamed to keep moving, every noise amplified, from the crunch of dry leaves underfoot to the distant cries of her neighbors. The darkness tightened around her, a snare prying and tugging at the threads of her sanity. Suddenly, the laughter returned, hostile and taunting, ricocheting off the houses like a chorus of the damned. The road ahead stretched before her like a gaping mouth ready to swallow her whole. What if they were waiting down the street, anticipating her flight? What if they were behind her, moving closer with every frantic beat of her heart? Kylie stumbled, slamming against a tree trunk. Her breath hitched as she clutched at the rough bark, feeling the cold sweat dampen her skin. She could hear them now, footsteps blending with the decrepit cadence of her neighborhood, turning into a relentless echo of despair. She turned, her mind racing. Should she signal for help? Call out? Or keep running deeper into the oppressive night? But what would happen if she didn't outrun them? What awaited her beneath the suffocating cloak of darkness? And as she felt eyes upon her, their heavy gaze lingering, Kylie realized there was no turning back now. The chanting surged, echoing through the town, relentlessly growing louder. We offer, we take. Kylie's pulse quickened. With terror icing her blood, she bolted forward, driven by the frantic need to escape whatever unspeakable horror awaited her in the heart of Maplewood. But the darkness had its grip on all of them. And she was about to learn just how deep the shadows ran. Kylie sprinted into the arms of the trees, their gnarled branches clawing at her as if trying to restrain her from fleeing. The voices outside swelled into a cacophony, a blend of laughter and chants mixing with the rustling leaves. Desperation sharpened her senses. Every sound, every breath seemed amplified against the backdrop of mounting terror. She strained to listen, trying to decipher the words twisted through the darkness. We offer, we take. It felt like an invitation or a curse. It was a song that spoke of loss, and it chilled her to the bone. Closing her eyes tight, she forced herself to remember everything that mattered, her daughter's smile, the warmth of home, the safety of daylight. But daylight was miles away. Kylie took off again, throwing herself deeper into the woods. The path was barely visible, a tapestry of tangled roots and thick brush that snagged at her clothes. Her chest heaved, air escaping in ragged gasps. She could feel them, feel something behind her, an urge to turn and check, to see if the grotesque faces danced past, mocking her flight. Ahead, she spotted a glimmer through the trees. A clearing. Her heart soared, but the high-pitched laughter returned, sharper now, taunting her like a twisted game. Run, little rabbit. Run, a voice whispered in the wind. Panic slammed into her gut, and she pushed herself harder, her feet slipping on damp earth, branches tearing at her skin. The clearing opened up suddenly, a stark contrast to the claustrophobic woods. But it wasn't a sanctuary, it was a graveyard, headstones jutting from the ground like jagged teeth, half covered in creeping vines. Moonlight cast long shadows, making it seem alive and hungry. Memory flashed. This was the old cemetery, where townsfolk buried their dead, a place countless stories spoke of dark rituals and vigilant spirits. Kylie stumbled into the center, her breaths coming in sharp bursts. "Please, don't let this be it," she gasped, her eyes scanning for any sign of life. But the only company was the wind whispering through the tombstones, echoing past fears that had once been bedtime stories. Had they once known the truth? Beneath the layers of forgotten lore, did she really dare to believe there was still hope for her family? Distant noises pulled her from her swirling thoughts. The chanting was back, perhaps louder than before. It was no longer just an echo, but a wave crashing and swirling around her. She turned, tentatively peeking beyond the clearing. They were their figures congregating, cloaked in shadow. Their movements were wild, arms raised high, supplicating to something unseen. And in the middle of it all, a flicker of flame broke through the darkness. A fire circle, the heart of their frenzy. Kylie's heart sank. They were all there. Their faces were contorted, caught between ecstasy and pain. The neighbors she had known, twisted into unnatural forms, their eyes glowing, almost pleading. But then she noticed a figure among them and her breath caught. It was her daughter. Standing still, locked in place, as if entranced by some unseen force. "No!" Kylie screamed, her voice breaking through the terror. The wind carried her cry as she pushed into motion, every part of her chasing that sound, fueled by primal instinct. But just as she lunged forward, a chorus erupted, shrieks cutting through the air like a knife. "Come back! Join us!" They stretched out their hands, beckoning her to cross the threshold into the circle, and in that instant, Kylie knew, they didn't want her just to join. They wanted her to become part of them. The ground vibrated beneath her, shaking with a malevolent energy. Shadows uncoiled around her feet, ready to pull her into the cold embrace of the earth. She hesitated, uncertainty freezing her veins. What would she sacrifice to save her daughter? Trembling, she could feel the darkness tugging at her heart. Time felt suspended, every moment stretched thin, before a whisper cut through, sharp, clear, and impossibly sweet. "Run, Mommy, please." A rush of adrenaline ignited something fierce within her. Kylie bolted back, drawing on the depth of her love and desperation. She had to fight, had to escape this dark dream before it squeezed the life from her. But each step back met resistance from the shadowy tendrils, fighting to drag her under. She could not fail her daughter. Kylie screamed as she tore her gaze from the fire circle, pivoting away from her past and dashing into the freedom of the woods. But would the darkness follow, or had she just unleashed something worse? And as she ran, she felt it, something sinister, slithering at her heels, ready to consume them all. What other dark secrets lay in wait, waiting for the next offering? Kylie pushed harder against the trembling earth beneath her, adrenaline pounding in her ears as she raced through the trees. Every shadow around her seemed alive, a malignant whisper promising that they would catch her. She could still hear the chants echoing from behind, a relentless tide of voices swallowing the night. Darkness unfurled around her, sinister and alive, clawing at her very soul. "Mommy, help!" The plea from her daughter rang in her ears, an urgency that fueled her flight. She tore past skeletal branches that reached like arms, scratching at her skin as she fought for breath. Each heartbeat thundered in her chest, the fear electrified her limbs. She could hear them drawing closer now, laughter mingling with the howling wind. Branches snapped underfoot, ghostly figures flitted in her peripheral vision, and the air thickened with a palpable dread. She had felt instinctual fear before, but nothing like this, nothing that burrowed into her bones like a worm. A glimmer caught her eye through the trees, a familiar sight that beckoned her. A cabin. The old hunting lodge where she spent summers with her family. Hope ignited within her, a fragile ember amid the storm of panic. If she could reach it, maybe she could lock the door, barricade herself inside, find her daughter. But the earth beneath her felt uneven, shifting, and she stumbled as she crossed out of the thicket. The cabin loomed ahead, decrepit and shadowy, its windows like dark eyes watching her. The door hung ajar, creaking softly. She hesitated for a beat, listening closely. It was too quiet. Unsettlingly so. Did they follow? Was this a trap laid just for her? A guttural growl slipped through the trees behind her, too close to ignore. She didn't look back, she bolted, fumbling for the door. The wood was rough, splintered, but she threw her weight against it. It swung open with a hiss of rusty hinges, and she stumbled inside. The cabin smelled of mold, old wood, and something more sinister, something sharp and metallic that cut through her attempts to breathe. Dark corners loomed, hiding who knew what. She slammed the door behind her, her breaths a frantic staccato. She moved into the dimly lit space, searching for something to barricade the door. A table, a chair, anything would do. As she worked, her frantic eyes darted to each creak and groan of the cabin. Shadows twisted in the corners, and the silence pulsed around her. Was it only her imagination, or did she feel eyes on her? She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound escaped. Outside, the whispers grew louder, almost a song, alluring yet grotesque. "Mommy, join us." The voice was sweeter, closer, unmistakably that of her daughter. The sound twisted her heart, pulling it in two. "No!" she shouted, slapping her hands against her ears. The panic surged again, and she forced herself to focus. A small window in the back would be her exit if the door failed. She started toward it, desperate to find her child, but as she moved deeper into the cabin, the walls seemed to close in. The air thickened, heavy with an unseen weight. The shadows shifted, dark figures padding soundlessly along the walls. Were they searching for her? Or were they gathering, waiting for the right moment to strike? Her heart raced as she reached the window, a breath away from escape. A fleeting glance backward froze her blood. They were here. The figures lurked just inside the doorway, cloaked in darkness, their faces contorted in ecstasy. The familiar shapes of those she once trusted twisted into horrors that belonged in nightmares. "Mommy," the voice was softer now, a siren-esque call pulling her towards the group. Kylie closed her eyes, fighting against the insanity that threatened to drown her. Her child was in danger, and she could not succumb to this dark temptation. "Stay away from her!" she screamed, defiance surging through her. But as she opened her eyes, she saw them step closer. Their hands stretched out, fingers impossibly long, gleaming with yearning. She turned back to the window, trembling, ready to launch herself through the glass. But what lay beyond? Would she find her daughter waiting in the trees? Or was that just another trap, a trick of the darkness? Before she could decide, the ground shuddered again underfoot. No more hesitation. Fight or flight, she had to make her choice now. And as she prepared to jump, voices sang a haunting refrain, echoing endlessly, leaving her with one chilling question: was she brave enough to abandon everything she knew to save the one she loved? The air shifted then, cold and bitter, twisting around her like a tightening noose. Silhouette shadows lurked beyond the glass, ready for her to choose. What other horrors would emerge if she broke free from the cabin's grip? Kylie's heart hammered against her ribs as icy fingers gripped her throat. The shadows didn't hesitate, they lurked in the edges of her vision, always shifting, always waiting. Just as she gathered herself, preparing to leap through the window, one of the figures stepped forward into a slant of moonlight that it was her mother. "Kylie? Is that you?" The familiar voice, once full of warmth and comfort, now dripped with a chilling heaviness. Her mother's face was pale, eyes wide with a haunting light that made Kylie take a step back. "Mom!" Kylie gasped, hope flickering in her chest. But as her mother stretched her arms toward her, what should have been a relief suffocated her. That soft smile twisted into something grotesque, filled with a longing she did not recognize, and the shadows swirled with glee. "Join us, sweetheart," her mother's voice invited, sweet yet sharp, like a knife hidden in honey. "Leave this place. Come home." "No." Kylie shook her head violently, resisting the urge to go to her. "You're not my mother." The cabin groaned as if the very walls were sympathizing with the urge to join. Kylie stumbled back into the darkness of the room, searching for escape while the air morphed into a living thing around her, tightening with each breath. Shadows danced around her, and there were more figures, each clinging to the edges, eager to lure her closer. "Mommy, help us!" echoed a voice from beyond her mother, now a harmonious choir blending into a nightmarish symphony. It was a cacophony of lost children, all battling for attention, their whispers enticingly sweet yet laced with venom. "Fight it!" she yelled at herself, clenching her teeth. But none of this felt real anymore. Was she dreaming? Had the darkness claimed her already? Kylie swung herself toward the lone window, feeling the pull of the voices behind her. They were drawing her in, promising safety and togetherness, the love of family. "Stop! You're not real!" she screamed. The silhouette of her mother flickered, momentarily casting aside the horror, revealing glimpses of warmth, but it was ephemeral. Each second stretched into a memory she desperately fought to break free from, yet those memories wrapped around her, entwining with her soul, squeezing her mind. Then, the unthinkable happened. The door creaked fully open, and a gust of night air filled the room, bringing more shadows, more cries. They surged into the cabin like a living tide. Kylie felt their presence, pressing against her as if they were drunk on her fear. With a boldness she didn't know she possessed, she hurled a broken chair toward the figures. It shattered against the floor, scattering splinters. The shadows recoiled, howling in fury. This was her moment. "Get away from me!" she shouted, throwing herself against the window frame. She could barely see the outside world, just a thick, suffocating darkness stretching endlessly. The howl of the wind screamed through the opening she created, pulling at her clothes, urging her to flee, but the instant she turned back to escape, the figures rushed closer, tongues flicking like snakes. They reached for her, and as she braced herself for their touch, her mother's face became clear again, this time twisted in despair. "Mom!" Tears streamed down Kylie's face as she felt the weight of choice press down. She could either surrender to this darkness or fight for the life of her child. With a reflexive motion, she leapt through the window, shards of glass biting her flesh, a scream tearing from her throat as she plunged into the void. Pain consumed her, and as she fell, the ground vanished. Had she made a horrible mistake? All around her erupted chaos, shadows reeled, laughter echoed. There was no land, just endless night and the sound of her daughter's sweet voice fading away. Was she strong enough to break free? Or would she too become one of them, lost in the dark? The ground beneath her began to shift, and she surely thought she heard a laugh, dark and rolling, claiming its prize. Just as she believed she would be lost forever, a pulse of light flickered, a small glimmer. Somewhere in the far abyss, what kind of decision lay ahead, and could she possibly reach that light before it vanished entirely? Kylie plummeted through the abyss, and as she fell, the light flickered like a candle struggling against a storm. It pulsed, taunting her, luring her in with an almost magnetic pull. The darkness around her howled, a cacophony of tortured souls begging for release. Each second felt like an eternity, each heartbeat a desperate plea for salvation. Suddenly, she felt the weight of the shadows pressing down on her. It was suffocating. An icy dread washed over her as she realized she was no longer falling but hovering, suspended in the void as if time itself held its breath. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice echoed louder now, piercing through the thick miasma of despair. The sound twisted and turned, layered with laughter and cries, echoing from all directions, dissonant yet familiar. "Help us!" Kylie thrashed in her invisible prison, fighting against the invisible bonds that held her captive. She could almost see faces, their hollow eyes pleading for understanding, for anyone to set them free. Were those lost children? Or were they something worse? "Let me go!" Kylie screamed into the darkness, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. The air thickened, and shadows swirled faster, creeping closer. They buzzed around her like hornets, buzzing with secrets she had no desire to know. With every moment that passed, the light began to dim, flickering dangerously. Instinctively, she kicked out, desperate to reach it. She knew if she let it slip away, she might never find her way back to her daughter. The darkness lunged forward, clawing at her like a physical thing, ensuring her attention remained on the void. It was trying to consume her, wrapping its cold tendrils around her heart, twisting and squeezing until the desperation morphed into acceptance. She felt it then, a sudden warmth in the pit of her stomach. Fueled by the thought of her daughter, she let out a cry, raw and defiant. "I want to disappear. I will find you." With a surge of adrenaline, she pushed forward, stretching her arms wide, reaching for the light like a lifeline. It shimmered on the edge of her vision, igniting determination in her veins. It was almost within grasp now, but the shadows shrieked, a chilling sound that sent shivers crawling down her spine. "Join us. Stay with us." Their whispers were maddening, like nails scratched against a chalkboard, seeking to ensnare her soul. They knew the truth: if she succumbed, she wouldn't just be lost, she would become one of them. Kylie's heart raced, and she fought against the conflicting urges. The joy of being with her daughter battled with the horror of losing herself forever. She could feel the very fabric of the world twisting, bending to the will of the shadows, almost as if the darkness sought to envelop her completely. She had a choice. Momentum built within her, a blazing fire fueled by love and defiance, and she thrust herself toward the pulsing light. The shadows' wails grew louder, desperate to drag her back, their grasp tightening as if they could physically capture her essence. With every ounce of strength she possessed, she lunged, fingertips brushing the edge of the light just as the shadows ripped viciously at her. Pain seared through her hand, a searing heat igniting her senses, yet she would not relent. She pulled her arm back, forcing the echoes of her mother's words out of her mind. "I will not join you." And then, just as the darkness lunged for her heart, she was through. The sensation was jarring, a blinding flash replaced the freezing grip of terror. The light enveloped her, radiating warmth and safety. But as her vision cleared, Kylie found herself not in safety but standing at the edge of a hauntingly familiar forest. The trees whispered secrets of their own, and in the distance, she heard it again, her daughter's laughter. "Mommy! Come play." Kylie's breath caught as she recognized the place. It was where they used to come every summer, a sanctuary now overshadowed by fear. The realization struck with cruel clarity. She was back, but the battle was only beginning. "Where are you?" she called out, voice trembling. The hollow sounds of the forest echoed around her, but nothing else answered. She could feel eyes watching from the shadows, forever waiting, forever hungry. And the dreadful thought crawled into her mind. What if her daughter wasn't just lost but a part of the darkness now? The trees seemed to lean closer, branches reaching, as whispers ghosted past her ears. Would she find her? Or had she already made a grave mistake in fighting the shadows? The answer loomed just out of reach, swirling in the cold breeze. Would Kylie dare to step into the forest again and risk everything to find out? Kylie blinked against the dim light filtering through the trees, heart pounding. Each step into the forest felt like a violation, a trespass into a realm she had once loved, now twisted into something sinister. The laughter echoed again, flitting through the trees like a butterfly, bright yet taunting. "Mommy!" came that little voice, sweet and innocent, yet laced with something else. Fear gnawed at her stomach, an insistent reminder that this was not what it seemed. She called out again, "Where are you, sweetheart?" The sound of her own voice was swallowed by the heavy air, making her feel small, desperate. The branches overhead whispered like specters sharing secrets, creating a chilling ambience that clung to her skin. Kylie stepped deeper, the underbrush crunched beneath her feet, each crack sounding like a gunshot in the thick silence that followed. Something was watching her, she could feel it, the shadows darting in her periphery, darting, whispering, sneering. "You shouldn't have come back," they seemed to hiss, words slithering like snakes through the silence. The laughter returned, a buoyant melody that snaked through the gloom. "Mommy! Come play. We're waiting." Her heart clenched. "I'm coming." She moved faster, her pulse quickening with the thought of finding her daughter. "I'll find you." But as she walked deeper, the path twisted. Trees curled around each other like grasping hands, their bark gnarled and blackened. The familiar warmth of summer sunshine faded, replaced by an icy grip that seeped through her clothes, chilling her bones. Each gust of wind felt like a warning, a reminder of how vulnerable she truly was. "Help!" The sudden shout cut through the forest, sharp and shrill. It was a stranger's voice, one filled with anguish and terror. She froze. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but a part of her yearned to help. "Help me! They're in the trees." "Who?" she shouted, searching the shadows for the source. "Who's there?" Silence. For a pulse-stopping moment, nothing stirred, then, from just beyond her view, the voice came again, softer now, pleading. "They'll take you too, don't let them take you." A shiver ran down Kylie's spine. She glanced back toward the path she came, the trees now seemed to loom higher, decorum of darkness. There was something fundamentally wrong here, a suffocating air wrapping tight around her mind. "Why are you here?" The chilling whisper pulled at her senses. Shadows shifted, an army of darkness beckoning her closer. "Join us. You belong to the forest now." "No." She gasped, mind racing. The light. She had felt its warmth, empowerment. It had pulled her from the abyss. Surely, she could do so again. Panic surged like a flood, threatening to drown her. The world blurred momentarily, but her daughter's laughter broke through. It enriched the air, resonating with hope, and she channeled her fear into resolve. "I'm going to find you, honey," she yelled, her voice echoing like a battle cry, but then a low rumble reverberated through the ground, as if the earth itself were growling with anger. The shadows twisted tighter, cocooning her in their grasp. "We don't want you to leave." As she spun around, the trees began to shift, their trunks twisting and writhing, not dissimilar to a living thing. She screamed as she felt an unseen force tugging at her, pulling her off balance, dragging her towards the denser part of the woods. "No! I won't give in." Her screams intensified, frantic. She was being taken, the darkness clamoring for her essence, craving her despair. A flash of light flickered at the corner of her eye, a spark of hope amidst the gloom. She fought against the tide of shadows, swinging her arms desperately. "Mommy! Come play." The laughter rang out again, now closer, more sinister, her heart seized. What lay ahead? Was it her daughter? Or was it another trap, designed to ensnare her heart along with her soul? The ground beneath her trembled, splintering trees bending like bowing puppets to an unseen puppeteer, and she realized too late the battle was only escalating. As she plunged deeper, the laughter faded and silence fell, suffocating her heart with dread. Where was her daughter? And what price would she have to pay to reclaim her? Would she dare continue or retreat while there was still time? With shadows closing in, the decision would soon be forced. Kylie's breath quickened. If she didn't act now, she might leave the forest without any chance of finding her. But what if the darkness already had her? What if it was already too late? Kylie stumbled, her feet slipping on damp leaves. The laughter had turned into a cacophony, echoing off the trees, reverberating in the hollow of her chest. Each giggle felt like a dagger, skewering her resolve, testing the very limits of her sanity. "Mommy! Come play." The voice wrapped around her, sweet yet dripping with malice. Fear flooded her veins. She had to fight, she had to keep moving. But the earth beneath her shifted again, roots writhed like serpents, trying to ensnare her ankles. She gasped, wrenching herself free. What were these trees? They weren't just wood and leaf, they were alive, angry, and hungry. "Help!" cried the voice again, this time weaker, desperate. "They're coming for you, you have to run." "Who?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "What are you?" "No time. They'll take you. Trust me." Against her instincts, she hesitated, instinctively looking into the dense underbrush for the owner of that voice. A fleeting glimpse, a flash of shimmering white among the shadows only made her more frantic. Was it real? Or was it another trick? She was losing her grip on reality. "Mommy!" The laughter peaked, echoing all around as if the forest had sprung to life, mocking her helpless state. Kylie pressed on, adrenaline surging, dragging her through the woods with a relentless pull. "I'm coming!" she yelled, refusing to let fear paralyze her. But the shadows shifted, and she felt the weight of them, saw them peering back at her with beady eyes, flickering, hungry. Ahead, she caught sight of a clearing. Was it the light she longed for? Or another illusion meant to lure her deeper into the forest's grip? She pushed toward it, heart pounding, desperate for any sign of her daughter. As she neared the clearing, the whispering escalated, turning into a shriek that rattled the very air. "You're too late!" it howled, reverberating through her bones. She halted, instinctively recoiling, terror seeping into her very core. With every heartbeat, the clearing grew clearer, pulsing with an eerie glow. But then, just as abruptly, the light dimmed, revealing the figure of a child sitting on the grass in the center, back turned towards her. It wasn't her daughter. "Help me!" It was the stranger's voice again, but now it was screaming from the hollowed trunk of a nearby tree. The bark twisted grotesquely, forming anguished faces those who had been trapped before. Kylie stumbled back, dread clawing at her throat. She could feel the darkness thickening around her, gripping her thoughts. If she went closer, she might end up just like them. "Don't listen." The voice warned again, this time from behind the trees. "They will keep you forever. You must run now." But where could she go? The forest had turned into a maze, every direction swirling in uncertainty. The shadows morphed, solidifying into figures, movement flickering at the edge of her vision, drawing nearer. The air filled with laughter that twisted and turned, now more a sinister chorus than sweet melody. As she turned, prepared to run back, the ground trembled viciously, earth shifted, and the dark figures emerged from the trees, their faces distorted, eyes gleaming with hunger. "You can't leave!" they chanted, a dreadful harmony echoing through the grove, merging with the laughter that seemed to come from all directions. Kylie felt panic clawing at her, a ragged breath escaping her lips. Could she fight them? What would happen if she tried? The shadows converged, and with each step closer, her heart thundered in her chest. The light was fading, the silhouettes grew larger, stretching towards her, arms outstretched, beckoning her closer. "You belong to us forever." Just as she turned to break free, a bolt of shimmering light shot through the treetops, bathing the clearing in its brilliance, pushing back the looming shadows. For just an instant, she could see. It was bright, hope incarnate, but then it flickered. In the quiet of that flicker, Kylie froze. What would she choose? Give in to the comforting darkness? Or chase that fleeting glimmer of hope that shined just beyond her reach? And as the light waned, the trees groaned ominously. The choices she dreaded came rushing back in unfolding terror, drawing her in yet again. Could she hold on to her sanity and confront what lay ahead? Or would she succumb to the inescapable call of the forest? The shadows awaited her decision. Kylie stood at the edge of that sinister clearing, her heart pounding like a war drum as the air crackled with anticipation. The shadows around her twisted and swelled, their malevolence palpable, feeding off the fear that coursed through her veins. She felt it, the tug toward the comforting darkness, the siren call of surrendering to the unknown. But there was something else, a flicker of hope ignited deep within her. "Mommy! Please!" The voice, her daughter's sweet voice, cut through the rising tide of despair, the last vestige of warmth that pulled her back to the living world. It was now or never. Could she push past the dread that clenched around her throat? Kylie's feet moved almost of their own accord. She stepped forward, breathing deep and steady as she fought to confront the shadows of doubt spiraling in her mind. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted, the defiance in her voice resonating through the darkness. The shadows recoiled, their relentless whispering faltered for just a moment, as if taken aback by her boldness. She could feel the warmth of the light pulsing behind her, urging her onward. Spurred by that faint glow, she rushed into the clearing, determination blazing in her chest. "Show yourself!" she cried, eyes darting around, searching for the owner of that enchanting laughter. With each step she took, those twisted faces seemed to warp and wail, craving her spirit. They wanted her weak, wanted her to succumb to their darkness. But she was stronger now, fueled by her love for her daughter and her absolute refusal to be consumed. Glancing around desperately, she spotted the huge, gnarled oak, its roots snaking into the earth like the fingers of the damned. Tied to those roots was a small figure, holding on to their mother's perilous embrace. "Baby!" The scream flew from Kylie's lips as her heart shattered with the specter of her little girl, fear slathering her pure innocence. The sight pushed her forward despite the horror waiting in the edge of the shadows. "Mommy!" Her daughter's echoing cry lit up the dark. The shadows writhed, greedy and angry as they closed in on her. They blocked her path with elongated limbs and grinning faces, barriers formed by friends she once knew. She could barely recognize the twisted versions of her neighbors, the sweetness of familiarity corrupted into something monstrous. But she had no time to dwell. She barreled through the figures, ignoring their desperate calls. "Join us. Stay with us." The temptation snaked around her, but nothing mattered more than reaching her child. "Not today," she shouted back, her voice a war cry echoing through the clearing. With trembling hands, she lunged for her daughter. The child was ensnared by creeping roots, glowing like an orange bead in the flickering dark. A surge of adrenaline melted fear, propelling her to grasp the small, cold hands. As she pulled her daughter free, the darkness shrieked, a mournful wail of lost souls echoing in unison. Kylie's heart raced as she felt the shadows push back, attempting to claw them apart as they fought against her attempt to escape. "Hold on," she urged her daughter. With her little one clinging tightly, they fled the oppressive clearing, the shadows thrashing furiously, howling threats that reverberated deep into the forest. Kylie's legs churned against the underbrush. She remembered the path leading back to the sunlit world. She could not let it all end here, not when hope had returned to her in the form of her daughter. As they crashed through the trees, she could feel the weight of despair clawing at her heels but refused to look back. "Run, Mommy!" her daughter shouted, much stronger than before. The child seemed to emulate Kylie's resolve, yet she was still terrified. The world around them twisted, branches snapping, whispering secrets that made her skin crawl, and just when it seemed the darkness would drag them back, she spotted the flicker of light, closer this time, beckoning them. "There! The cabin!" she cried, feeling hope blossom in her chest. As they raced toward the haven, the shadow figures raged behind them, shrieks blending into a cacophony of malicious need. "You belong to us," came the furious chorus, but Kylie didn't listen. They would not take her again. Bursting through the door of the old hunting lodge, she slammed it shut and fumbled to jam a broken curtain rod against the handle. Heart racing with adrenaline, they barely caught their breath. "Mommy?" her daughter whispered, looking up at her treasured light. Kylie sank to her knees and wrapped her arms around her child, their warmth reigniting hope wrapped in pure love. A moment of relief washed over them until a new sound broke the thin silence, a low whispering at the door. The shadows whispered their hunger, their insatiable need to reclaim what had been lost. But Kylie felt a primal fury rise within her. Turning back to her daughter, she said, "We'll face them together." Side by side, their resolve solidified like stone. With a determined roar, Kylie flung open the door. "You will not take us. We choose our freedom." The shadows surged forward like a crashing wave, but together they pushed through the wave, their hearts blazing with light. And as darkness began to roar, the powers of light flared, binding them, holding them back. Victory was so bittersweet, yet they persisted. Together, they ran, their laughter blending until it rose above the shadows, ringing like bells through the haunted forest. Finally, they broke free beyond the trees, the air vibrant with colors that felt real once again. The sun was setting, splashing the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. Everything felt alive but safer, promising a new dawn. They looked at each other, eyes filled with an unbreakable bond. Kylie's heart swelled with pure love as she grasped her daughter. "I will always fight for you." And as they walked toward their home, hand in hand, a final piece of darkness flickered in the shadows far behind them. But it was too late, they were free. Don't you dare forget this story, friends. If you want to be part of future journeys like this, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button to help us feed the algorithm and spread these wild narratives. I want to hear from all of you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what you just witnessed. And if you know friends that need to see this, don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 people. Let's keep our community growing, together.